Ideologies. Ideologies are important. Ideologies are the things that form our belief systems. What I'm getting at with all of this is that, like, for example, you might have a religious ideology or a political ideology. And oftentimes we'll say, you just kind of do what you're told, or you don't really think things through. If I were to ask you, how much time a day do you spend thinking about political issues? And I don't just mean like consuming media about it, but actually stopping and putting a device down and thinking about it and considering, what do I believe about this and why? My guess is that it's very few minutes a day, if any at all. And it isn't about a generational thing. This is like most people. If you ask most people, like what you were saying earlier with regards to what's right and wrong behavior. Like last period, I was asking them, I don't remember which period it was. I was asking one of my periods about this, about murder, for example. Somehow it came up. Was it this period? And I was asking the question, why is murder wrong? Was it this period? No. I was asking this question about why is it that murder is wrong? And students were giving me answers like, well, because it's murder. Right? So you just repeated what I said, but the question is, why is it wrong? Well, because you're taking someone's life. Yes, we're taking someone's life, but what's wrong with taking a person's life? And that should be the most obvious, basic question for us to answer. And yet it's really hard for most of us to answer. You know, the closest that we got to anything in that period was, I remember a student saying, well, because they don't want to be murdered. Yeah, but if I murder somebody, I don't want to go to jail. So does that mean I shouldn't go to jail? In other words, if it's wrong, explain to me why it's wrong, and without referring back to itself. And you're going to find it's very difficult to do. Now, that's just murder. Now, think about if I follow up with another question. Let's say you did finally get to the bottom of it, and you have a really strong belief system, which, by the way, would take you a very long time to come to on your own. And then if I were to ask you, okay, so now that we've spent the last 3 or 4 years trying to figure out what's wrong with murder, what about stealing? Oh my God, you can see how figuring out all of these moral precepts takes a really, really long time. Or you can say, I'm a Christian. And so according to my religion, which I subscribe to, we shouldn't kill. We shouldn't murder. We shouldn't steal. We shouldn't lie. This makes sense. Ideologies are useful because they give us a way of processing the world around us without having to think through every little step. Even if you don't know why you shouldn't steal, even if you don't know why you shouldn't murder, which by the way, I'd argue that, I would bet that a lot of people, even if you subscribe to a religion, you couldn't tell me why murder is wrong except to say that my religion says it's not. And you couldn't tell me why your religion says it's not. Maybe you could. But I find that when I talk with people, a lot of people simply can't. But the ideology would say that's okay. You don't have to know the why. All you have to know is the it. It's not okay to do this. This is a sin. That's a sin. This is, and then not just what sinful behavior is, but also what virtuous behavior is as well. You find this politically. Like, for example, in the after the COVID stuff and after the riots for all those years, we kept hearing this talk about how we had to elevate black voices, and we had to really just be quiet and listen to black voices, and we were elevating constantly black voices. And then we had a race for the governorship in this state, or a recall election, in which it was essentially a wealthy white man from a very privileged background against a black man who was self-made, whose family grew up in South Central. And the state overwhelmingly chose the wealthy white person over the black male. Why? Political ideology. He wasn't the right kind, as it were. And so it doesn't mean having to listen to a certain politician, hear what they have to say. It just means, wait. Are you a Republican, or are you a Democrat, or are you a Libertarian? That's how you vote, just straight down the line. By ideology. It saves us the hassle, as it were, of trying to figure out what we believe. And so it's useful to a degree, because then you don't have to think through every single little issue, which could take up a lot of your life. But it's also problematic because the ideology might be a bad ideology. It might lead you to some really messed up conclusions. It might get you to behave in ways that you would look at objectively normally and say, I shouldn't be behaving in this way. I shouldn't be feeling this way about things. And so the point is that ideologies are designed to separate us. It's designed to say Christian, Muslim, Hindu, so forth. Political ideologies are designed to separate us. I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican, they're a Libertarian, the other person over there is Green Party, to separate us out so we know which group we belong to. However, he points out that dreams and anguish are the things that bring us together. That's why I was asking the question earlier, what is it that these things are based on? In other words, what is it that ideologies, what forms the basis of an ideology? And what forms the basis of an ideology really is exactly that, dreams and anguish. What brings about a religious ideology? Well, the anguish of being mortal and knowing that you're going to die. But then the dream of being able to survive death and live in heaven. What is it that forms the basis of a political ideology? Exactly that. The anguish of being where we are and the dream of being able to create something better. So these are the things that form ideologies. And instead, though, a lot of times ideologies just kind of take over. And they're no longer kind of serving people, but rather it's kind of forcing people to serve the ideology. You're going to vote with our party, right? Come on, our person, right or wrong. You're going to side with your religion, right? Come on, that's your religion, right or wrong. It gets perverted and inverted to where it's no longer serving people, but it's people now serving an ideology. And then there's just some ideologies that are just straight out about that. Collectivist ideologies like communism. They're designed to eliminate the individual and to only elevate the group. Of course, only a few people run the group, but that's for something else. And so, dreams bring us together, anguish brings us together, ideologies not so much, experiences. These things can bring us together. But having said that, if I see you as a 12th grader, 4th quarter, we talk a bit about ideologies and the usefulness of them. So they're not to be dismissed entirely. They do serve some function, just maybe not good enough to keep them around. Well, we'll see. So, questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?